Great. Konnichiwa. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to the organizers of Kansai Open Forum. We're very excited to be here to discuss with you the exciting topic of blockchain, decentralized autonomous organizations, and some of the commercial use cases. The outline of our presentation today is to discuss with you the decentralized autonomous organizations, DAO, the business use cases regarding the DAO, some of the technologies, some of the blockchain use cases in supply chain, in the commercial world. Also discuss with you the technical framework of blockchain and how they are deployed with smart contracts, and also look at some of the emerging issues within blockchain, particularly on the African continent. My name is Katlego Kgosana. I am from South Africa. I'm a current JICA scholar and also an alumnus of the KIC, Kobe Institute of Computing, MSc in Information Systems. I have a background in sustainability and finance, particularly in the mining industry, but not blockchain mining, the real mining industry where you mine platinum and so forth. So as we mentioned earlier, blockchain is about databases. It's about storing information, historical information on strings of called blocks so that we have immutability. A key distributing factor for blockchain is that it's a distributed ledger, distributed publicly, which ensures that there is transparency between transactions and the partners that transact with each other. But it can also be replicated over many computers. So we can have a wide network across the world, across many computers. And another important issue for us is the fact that blockchain has no central command, no central authority that is actually assuring the accuracy of that ledger that we speak about. So it is very decentralized. It is therefore very trustworthy and secure, and also very ideal for building consensus amongst parties that transact together. As we said, the benefits of blockchain are the fact that the network can be public, it can be open to anyone. So it is disrupting some of the private and traditional networks that we used to have in the past. You don't require any permission to be part of the blockchain network. So it means that it is permissionless. For example, when we look at the DAO and stuff, we realize that blockchain is very instrumental in facilitating democracy. So there's no censorship and so forth. And of course, decentralization. So many of us know the most common blockchain, which is the Bitcoin, which was launched in 2009. And which has been going through a very rough patch. If you have been investing in Bitcoin and so forth, you would realize that the market valuation has dropped in the last year or so. But there are also new forms of blockchains which we're going to touch on, some of them including Ethereum. In terms of the DAO, might pose a question. Can you imagine a world without a CEO, maybe where you work in your company, without a board of directors? Or alternatively, those of you who are entrepreneurs in the tech startup space, can you imagine a world without venture capitalists? Having to take a cut of your ideas. So this world is what the DAO, or the decentralized autonomous organization, is trying to create. So we're trying to create a collectivist system with the DAO that is going to leverage automation and crowdsourcing. similar to what we're discussing here about open source. So DAO is actually very, very much about crowdsourcing, about the collective, being able to organize themselves without a central figure, without the CEO, without the board of directors planning or directing the affairs of the organization. It is very important that we realize that the DAO is based again on the consensus mechanism. And these are some of the applications of the DAO. Originally, it's in investment management. I mentioned venture capital earlier on. So we are seeing the DAO application disrupting how venture capital is being performed. The DAO is becoming important in social entrepreneurship, in charity, how we grant money to our charities. We can now do it in a very decentralized fashion. Again, it can be very instrumental in constitutional development in terms of voting systems and governance system of voters, but not only in terms of the corporate, but also at a democratic level. So we know that the first DAO was launched in 2016. And when we look at the mechanics of the first DAO, is that smart contracts were deployed encoding some of the business rules that would typically be done in a traditional corporate setting. So the funds, for example, can only be transferred only when the majority of the owners in the network, in the DAO, sign off on a particular transactions. You as the investor or as the crowdsourcing participants, you can deposit an Ether, which enables you to vote whether we are going to approve a particular business plan. If we create a DAO for investment management or a VC, we can vote as to whether a certain entrepreneur has a good business plan that we think is valuable for us to invest in. And once that is approved, and this is all generated by smart contracts, which my friend is going to be speaking about later on, the money is able to be dispersed. So once again, as I said, you've got an automation of an investment management use case. For example, with the initial DAO, they were able to raise 150 million at inception through crowdsourcing. But there are also problems around the coding, the flaw in the coding. So lastly, I'm going to touch on briefly on another use case outside of investment management, which is emerging. Another use case is when we start companies. I mean, we've seen with investment management, we can easily deposit money, we can buy money there, and we can evaluate business plans. But another use case that is emerging, for example, is when you start a company. There's an organization in the United States called Otoko that is working on this. So we make the registration of making a company very quick and very simple. So the DAO is able to do that, and we therefore cut out all the legal and accounting fees and the central authorities that are involved in this particular process. Of course, there are challenges with the DAO about legal validity, the legal validity of whatever instrument you are creating in the blockchain and its legal status in real life. And I think that is where a lot of work needs to go in to solve the issue of legal validity amongst this. So I am going to pause for a while and give my colleague Sahiboul to expound on some of the business use cases, please.
Thank you, Katlego. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Sahiboul Maman, as you can see, but please call me anytime. Call me Sahiboul. I mean, yeah. So I'm also, as my previous colleague, I'm also JICA scholar. I've been in Japan for the last 2 years studying at Kwansei Gakuin University. I graduated an MBA in international management in last September. But prior to that, I was a bachelor and master's degree holder in ICT. And I've been working for the last 10 years just before coming to Japan into the IT industry. And I specialize in developing websites and web-based application. So I specialize using the CMS, the content management system, which is Joomla, Drupal, and WordPress. So for the last 10 years before coming here, I realized about 25 websites using these CMSs. So what I'm going to introduce to you regarding the blockchain is a case study on Hitachi. Okay, so Hitachi streamlines and secure the procurement division using HyperLedger Fabric. So they call it electronic signature service, a blockchain-backed paperless procurement. So the idea here is to reduce the paper work, the use of paper into the procurement transactions. So about Hitachi, this is not, I'm actually not the one who is supposed to tell you. You're the one who was supposed to tell me, because Hitachi is a Japanese-based company, okay, global technology company, which is was established in 1910. It's founded in 1910, but established in 1920. And Hitachi is known to be one of the big company doing digital innovation into bringing, helping having a smart life and investing into industrial, energy, and IT sectors technologies. And Hitachi is also about 873 companies around the world, in more than 100 countries in the world. And it's also 380,000 employees. So I put this figure just to give you an idea of the amount of operation that are going on, into Hitachi Group. Okay, so that's a lot of work that Hitachi is doing around the world. So you can imagine that the procurement division is doing a lot of paperwork, all right? So that's where they come up into this world of digitalization, where they come up into say, okay, we need to digitalize the way the procurement is dealing with all the stakeholders that are going on there. That's where they started implementing, trying to convert the paperwork process. So the goal for them, okay, is to reduce the time needed to process a contract. For example, when it comes to deal with a supplier, for example, the process to implement a contract is going through many processes, and in every level of the process, people have to check on the contract and check the conformity with the regulation and stuff. So this is a lot of time. So one of the goals they wanted to achieve is to reduce the time it takes, to process a contract. They also wanted to eliminate the paper, because during the contract, there's a lot of paperwork that are doing because of all the clauses that are in the contract. So they wanted to reduce that also. And they also wanted to increase the trust, because in the digital systems, everything is possible using the digital communication. So they also wanted to increase the trust, to have a technology that is trustworthy, that everyone can rely, can trust during the contract process. So the results that is expected is to increase by 20% in the contract case managed per month in the division. Actually, they implemented this solution for the first time for the procurement division, and their plan for this division is to increase the amount of contracts that are being treated, per month. And they projected also to save the time that people are the time that people are spending, into dealing with the contract process. And then they also wanted to reduce the mailing, the amount of mailing that will be sent, because knowing that in using the technology that will allow them just to be able to work at the same time into a trusted platform, to everyone has to go just connect and do the paperwork they needed to do, doing it digitally. And also to increase the ability for remote work. So you don't need to you just need to have a connection, wherever you are, so that you can work on the contract through the process. So the approach is to convert as I said before, they focus first on the procurement division first, where they've been able to use this HyperLedger Fabric to implement this solution, which will help them achieve the goal I stated before. They tested the use case in the procurement division, and now what they are planning to do by March 2023 is to roll out to the other divisions, so that in all the group, they will be using this technology of HyperLedger Fabric to streamline the procurement process. So the achievement is at the end of when they will be implemented. In the timeline they set up is by March 2023. It's estimated that once they will cover all the divisions with the electronic signature system, they will save about 73,500 minutes per month. And when you divide it into per person, that's 8,224 extra hours that the teams, will have. So this is a huge amount of time that people can spend, doing other works. So now I will hand over to Zainab, so that she will tell you technically how this system works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. こんにちは。私はエルコツザイナブ、モロッコから来ました。専攻 ICT です。Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to highlight and outline how HyperLedger Fabric is working and what are the technical aspects used in HyperLedger Fabric to protect the infrastructure from being tampered or hacked. So, as my friends have just explained, a blockchain is shared or is a replicated ledger into different nodes in the system, and they are updated via smart contracts or rules. The smart contracts are considered as rules that they are implemented or deployed in order to make sure about the transactions and to make or to ensure the integrity and consistency of the transactions inside the ledger. So why HyperLedger Fabric? Compared to Ethereum and the other standard or familiar blockchain, HyperLedger Fabric is used in the context of enterprises or companies in the business area or field, because it's a permissioned blockchain. What does it mean, permissioned blockchain? There is permissioned blockchain and permissionless blockchain. The permission blockchain gives the permission to other nodes to be in the blockchain. So the permission is not given to anyone to join the blockchain. The permission is given to some nodes, and the identity must be identified and known by all the nodes in the nodes in the blockchain. And it's used, as I have just said, in the company and in the business area, and participants must be identified, and it's not the same thing as the other blockchains such as Ethereum or Polygon, because in the other blockchains, the nodes can be connected and in an anonymous way. Networks need to be permissioned and high transaction throughout performance if the performance is higher, and the low latency of transaction confirmation compared to the other standard or familiar blockchains. Already, my two friends explained, and its privacy and confidential related to the other familiar blockchains. So, what is HyperLedger Fabric? HyperLedger Fabric it has highly modular and configurable architecture, and it is enabling innovation. And all nodes inside the blockchain must be identified to avoid any case of tampering. And it offers the ability to create channels, allowing a group of participants to create separate ledgers of transactions. So inside the same network or inside the same blockchain, we can have many different channels. Because depending on the needs of the network, participants in B2B or business-to-business network, they might be extremely sensitive about sharing their information. So the information must be confidential, and more channels can be created in order to ensure that the information has been transferred from the source to the targets correctly. And it supports smart contracts written in different languages, in different programming languages, such as Java, Go, or Node.js. In my case, HyperLedger Fabric is permissioned blockchain. What does it mean, permissioned blockchain? It means that identities are required and must be identified. It's totally different than permissionless blockchain, where every participant is anonymous and they are not known. And also for permissioned blockchain, there is for identifying the identities of those connected to the blockchain or to the channel, there is a membership server provider or trusted centralized authority that must give the certifications or the certificates to those who want to join the blockchain. So the certificates are not given to anyone, and they are given based on the trust. Anyone in the blockchain or in the channel must be trusted. For the permissionless blockchains, they employ a mind-native cryptocurrency, and it's like all the nodes inside the channel must ensure that this transaction has been validated. So the validation of the transaction is not done at the same thing compared to the permissioned blockchain. In the permissionless blockchains, every node can validate the transaction. But in the permissioned blockchains, not all nodes can validate the transactions. Only those who are trusted can give the certificates to those who are trusted. And for permissioned blockchains, it also it's based on endorsement policies. Endorsement policies means that there are many rules that are in the chain code that must be validated or that must be followed in order to make sure that everything is done correctly. For the HyperLedger Fabric model, it is based or it consists of the public PKI or public key infrastructure infrastructure model, which means that there is a certificate that is given by certificate authority to the different nodes or the different participants. And there is a certificate revocation list. It means that anyone in the blockchain or in the channel must be trusted or must be validated as being the right participants. And for the certificate, it's signed by the private key and it's issued by the other participants using the public key. I wanted to talk about the IBM extension for Visual Studio Code because I used it many times, and it's really simple to use to create smart contracts and to create assets, either fungible assets or non-fungible assets. And it's also used to deploy the smart contract and to package the smart contract and to add other assets or to make transactions valid. So thank you very much for your attention. I will give Katlego will give you the conclusion.
Yes, thank you very much, Zainab. Thank you very much, colleagues, Sahiboul, for explaining some of those use cases in blockchain, particularly the commercial applications in Japan, as the Hitachi use case, and Zainab-san expounding on some of the technical frameworks around it. So, in closing, we would like to perhaps ask where the future of blockchain lies, especially in the light of what has been happening in the Bitcoin markets, and particularly also share with you, since we are from Africa, share with you some of the developments that are happening in Africa with regards to blockchain. And perhaps maybe you will advise as to how you see this in comparison to Japan. So on October 22, which is last month, the South African Central Bank, maybe the equivalent to the Bank of Japan, came out with a very groundbreaking announcement that cryptos are now regarded as a financial asset. So not entirely legal tender, but what it says is that it now recognizes cryptocurrencies, gives it credence, and it's now bringing it into the regulatory purview so that it is regulated. What this means is that all the crypto providers will now have to be registered with immediate effect, right? So it was a very groundbreaking announcement, and as I said, the implications of that is that they now have to comply with financial conduct rules, because we know we were seeing in Africa some of unethical practices were beginning to happen in the crypto space. And I think it is a welcome development that the regulator is coming in. And we are of the view that, the future or some of the future challenges with regards to blockchain are going to lie in the regulatory area, as regulators are trying to keep step to step with the developments in there. So what then happened is similar to what iCraft has, in terms of, the crypto wallets and so forth, is that the South African retailers, immediately after the central bank recognized cryptos as a financial asset, they began accepting crypto as a form of payment. So this is one of the largest retailers in South Africa. It's called Pick n Pay. It's actually one of the largest retailers in Africa, and probably with revenue approaching more than $1 billion. But the market size of the South African retail, because already South African retailers have already piloted taking cryptocurrencies as a form of payment. And that has got implications for a 50 billion worth of retail market just in South Africa, but South African retailers operating in the rest of Africa, as many of them are. So it means that the retail industry in Africa now is really ripe for disruption in terms of what crypto assets are about. But I think the ruling of the South African central government is going to affect quite a number of industries. I mean, for example, fintech, how we are making payments across Africa in agricultural markets. So we see this development, which is likely going to be copied by other regulators on the continent. We see this as very exciting news for blockchain and cryptos on the African continent. And I mean, those of you that are playing in that space, we really encourage you to look at the African market in this particular regard. So if you look at the state of the industry, you might have heard of Luno, which was a company founded in South Africa. But I think across the African continent, we are seeing some unicorns, quite a few unicorns that are coming to the fore. If you look in 2021, there were 1,247 deals. You know, these are crypto deals, fundraising from venture capitals. I mean, $25 billion has been raised just in 2021. As I said, because of the level of development in Africa, particularly around financial services, crypto is going to be very, very instrumental in providing services in finance and agriculture. And these are some of the biggest markets in terms of crypto. You know, when we look at maybe funding going into the blockchain industry, Nigeria, Seychelles has been surprising. I mean, they are doing some wonderful work in terms of, you know, the blockchain industry. And of course, Kenya and South Africa are also leading the way. But I mean, this is a very exciting field. And we're very fortunate to have had the opportunity to be part of this conversation, particularly in Japan, you know, courtesy of iCraft, Mr. Yamamoto and colleagues at the Open Forum. So on that note, we would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation. Maybe my colleagues, do you want to add on what we've discussed? You know, since we still have a little bit of time before we can take questions. So.
No, I think for me it's fine. That's the end of the presentation. We'll just listen to if there are questions.
Right. Yes. So
thank you for the attention.
Yes, thank you very much. And we'd like to maybe get a few comments or questions from the floor with regards to any aspect of the presentation, please.
Thank you.
I think we still have time, Mr. Chair.
No, for question time.
Okay. No, okay. Yes, Mr. Ewa.
Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to ask the banking situation of your which country?
The banking situation. Zainab-san, please start.
For the banking situation in my country, I'm not sure if they are using the blockchain or not. So I'm not sure because this blockchain is related to financial transactions. And maybe in the future, they can use such architecture or such technology in order to make it easier and simple. And also maybe in the future, in my country, the financial transactions can be made without centralized agency like banks. But I'm not sure about the situation, the financial situation.
Okay. Okay. You finished?
No, your financial situation.
Okay. So in my case as well, my country is still is a small economy. We are still coming into digitalization. Just I want to share with you one of the activity that is going on the side of fintech. I just failed to share it in my, so I downloaded this. It's actually, this is a context that is going on the for the startups in the fintechs. So the government is investing a lot of money. So I don't know exactly if I have to convert 145 million of my country would be something around $250,000 for the those who have, okay, you have 3 levels. The first level is to gain 5 million, like the startups who are starting to invest into fintechs. The contest is currently going on. So from 5 million to 145 million, and this contest is conducted every year for the last 5 years to encourage people to embrace the fintech. And actually, the agency that is organizing these contests, the CEO of the company is I would say the president advisor in terms of everything that is related to IT. And this guy is also a member of international blockchain organization. So I would say maybe for the future, for the last future, it's really welcome in my country as well.
Great. I think that's a great question, Mr. Yamamoto. The South African financial services is quite well developed. It's probably comparable to what you would find in first world countries. But the challenge in Africa is always about financial inclusion. It's about covering poorer people that cannot afford the traditional banking systems. So what we are seeing is that countries like Kenya and Nigeria, where traditionally they don't have the same financial system as the South African one, have been the ones that were innovating the most with regards to payments. You might have had things like M-Pesa and so forth. So I think the fintech industry with regards to blockchain, again, in South Africa, has been driven by the traditional banks. And when I referred to that particular report earlier on, it was coming from Standard Bank, which is the biggest banking group in Africa. It is the South African-based company. They are investing a lot of resources trying to compete with the new fintechs that my colleague is talking about. But also there are exciting news on the new Cape Town Stock Exchange. I think, you know, it's a fairly new stock exchange in comparison to Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I think we are likely going to see a lot of activity with regards to cryptos. But to answer your question, I think most of Africa financial services not well developed. And I think the regulators see cryptocurrencies as a way to help them leapfrog or address the financial challenges. We hope we try to answer your question, Mr. Elkodsi.
I think Japanese banks are too old and huge. Very negative to new technology. But your country's economies new and banking systems are growing slowly. I think there may be more progress in fintech service than Japan in your country. Yeah, I'd like to get it. Thank you.
Definitely. There's definitely exciting news happening. Yes. Yes.
I'd like to ask you on about FTXCI and the largest incident in I think. And I'm from the Japanese government, fiscal agency, and I hosted a relatively group on October. This study group try to promote how to promote this technology in Japan, but I take very difficult situation on this one activities. As you know, 5 years ago, we are making the law of cryptocurrency. At that time, we learned the people just has no security and exact. But 5 or 6 years later, now Bitcoin security is very difficult. Got dependent on any token and legal entity. Situation is very complex and unclear. No one knows what's happening, what I believe technical improvement on of course, I believe innovation on this field, blockchain and decentralized finance and decentralized autonomous organization. But on this situation, government cannot catch up and it doesn't institution what do you think how to balance promoting innovation and protecting investors and consumers and how to improve such kind of
Yes. Yes, I think that's an excellent point. Thank you very much for your point. It's an excellent question. And I think that is the issue the regulators in South Africa are grappling with, they are trying to resolve, because as you rightly observe, innovation and speculation became very, very widespread and very rife. And the regulators were caught on the back foot. I mean, a very interesting point about the South African Reserve Bank announcement is that they recognize cryptos as financial assets, but even they say the NFTs, they don't understand what is going on with the NFTs, and therefore they can't regulate on that particular point. But I think to protect the consumers, we need to have a lot of the players under financial conduct rules. It's going to be because the financial regulations, are very difficult for startups. At least in my country, it's very difficult for a startup to comply with financial conduct authority rules. So it might have an effect on some of the entrepreneurialism. I agree that might take place. But yes, you are raising a very good point. I wish I was also a regulator knowing, but I think for the moment, we need to protect the consumer and the investor and the integrity of the financial system. I'm not sure, colleagues, whether you...
So yes, maybe one thing I would like to add is, okay, let me make sure that I've understood the question. So as you are from the government side, right, of technology, what you wanted to know, like the government is finding it difficult to institutionalize these type of technologies, because they wanted not only to protect themselves, but also the customers, right? But maybe a beginning should be what Hitachi has accomplished, for example. That can be an example. And as my colleagues say, where the biggest amount of the game will be played is in terms of regulation, because the government is supposed to be the one who will put the regulation on everything, whatever the industry is. So the government, the game that it should play is in formulating how they will how they will define the frame in which these technologies will be used. that's what I think. And because also another thing that we need to know is, because this is a global thing, you know, this is a trend that is going on all over the world. So for the future, all the countries would like to deal with each other, especially for the big economies like Japan, which are having, you know, deals everywhere in the world. So if the other countries adopt the technology, they don't have any choice but to follow, you know, because if it's a global thing that has been defined for people to come and play. So everyone, if you stay aside of it, so you won't be part of the international market that is going on out there. That's what I think. I don't know if there's something you want to add.
Yeah, I also think that I think the market of cryptocurrencies is not stagnating. So the value is fluctuating. It's not stable. So this issue is a real issue. It's like it's speculation. It's not what happens today is not sure that the same thing will happen tomorrow. But I think that there is even if it's something, it's disadvantage, but there are some advantages of using the cryptocurrencies, I think. For example, if the currency is international and it's used everywhere, maybe the value of our currencies, of our national currencies, might not be impacted. I mean, that the problem of inflation maybe can be resolved, or many other problems. So there is every time trade-off to make. Thank you.
Yes. But yes, we would love to continue the conversation again with you. It's a very interesting one. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe now, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.